Hi everybody, this is Kevin here from Happy Beard Games, your source for classic gaming goodness, and this is my playlist called Nostalgia Bits. Last time we looked at some Nintendo Power trading cards, but this week we have something completely different in store, so let's start. Now, you may remember back in the day, the early 90s, if you're an 80s or 90s gamer, or if you just have a love for classic or retro video games, you should know about the classic game. This is one of the best games on the Super Nintendo, in my opinion, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest. This is a great, great game, one of the best sequel games that I can think of in terms of a direct sequel. Donkey Kong Country 2 shines out as one of the best in the series. It features new character Dixie Kong and returning character Diddy Kong, who was the second player in Donkey Kong Country, the first one for the Super Nintendo. Now, this actually went on to have another sequel, Donkey Kong Country 3. There's also Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Wii U and the Wii, and also on the 3DS. Those games are on. And this game also spawned many other games in the Donkey Kong series. It kind of revived Donkey Kong in a way, because Donkey Kong, the series, is actually from an older generation, which is the arcade Donkey Kong, where Mario, then known as Jumpman, battled Donkey Kong in the classic arcade hit. And other arcade hits featuring Donkey Kong as well were Donkey Kong Jr. and Donkey Kong 3. And there's also Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Now, the game itself doesn't include too much story. It has references to the story, and you get the basic understanding that Donkey Kong has been kidnapped. You get that right off the bat. And you find out that you are Diddy Kong and or Dixie Kong along with you. And you have to go rescue him on Crocodile Isle from the Kremlings, the bad guys from the first Donkey Kong Country. So they've kidnapped DK. King K. Rool is now Captain K. Rool, and he's kidnapped DK, and you have to basically go level after level, world through world, and make it to the end of the game to rescue your buddy DK and save the day. Now, all that was not entirely included in the game, but it was lightly in the game. Now, some of that is expanded upon in this book. Yes, a book. A storybook. This is a junior or kid-sized storybook. It is a chapter book, but it has pictures on each page, and the font is rather large. So, this is Donkey Kong Country, Rescue on Crocodile Isle. Now, it doesn't actually say Donkey Kong Country 2, but it is based on Donkey Kong Country 2's storyline. It covers the basic storyline of the entire game, from start to end, and also, kind of notably, it does feature the same artwork as on the cartridge. Now, in this book, you'll find the actual story. I don't know if it's the actual story, though, but this is basically the deeper, the lore, the whole story in text and in detailed version of Donkey Kong Country 2. As in the game, that once again, there isn't that much actual narrative in terms of text. There is a couple things you can talk to characters, and there's a little bit of backstory here and there, and there's a little bit of cutscenes, but not much. So if you want to know more about Diddy and Dixie's adventures in Donkey Kong Country 2's storyline, check out this book. Reading from the back, it says, Donkey Kong Country, Rescue on Crocodile Isle. Shiver me timbers! The evil Captain K. Rool has kidnapped Donkey Kong and taken him to the Kremling's pirate haven on Crocodile Isle. Can young Diddy and Dixie Kong save their famous friend? This actually is officially licensed by Nintendo and is published by a publisher known as Troll. Troll. Okay. Donkey Kong Country, Rescue on Crocodile Isle by Michael Teitelbaum. Interior illustrations by Leaf Peng. Alright. So this is how the book starts out. It has a big font 1, and then it continues on with the text, and then throughout the chapters there'll be pictures. It'll help you out if you're a younger reader, or if you're new to reading, a beginning reader, or usually just a young kid in I'd say probably 3rd grade to 5th grade, maybe, reading level. Because it is a chapter book. It's not too long, but it's a chapter book. Also, it's important to know that this is intended for children in most cases, or hardcore Nintendo fans, because I don't think too many people would pick this up otherwise. The story begins in Chapter 1 with Donkey Kong let out a big sigh. It doesn't get any better than this, he thought to himself. He stretched his hairy arms over his head and wriggled his toes in the white sand. The beautiful blue ocean of Donkey Kong Island lay before him. Okay. This is gonna get serious. This is some deep stuff. This is some deep Kong lore. We're digging into the Great Kong War. Or maybe not the Great Kong War yet. But we are digging into the backstory. This is before the game even happens. This is back when Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong are on the beach. They're just kind of hanging out. And then you actually get to see what happens to Donkey Kong and how he got kidnapped. Which is kind of interesting, I guess, if you played the game enough and you always wondered. At the beginning of the book, Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong are talking to each other on the beach. Donkey Kong snoozes off on the beach, and Cranky Kong returns home. Later that night, Donkey Kong does not return home, so Diddy, Cranky, Wrinkly, and Dixie go down to the beach to check out if he's alright, and if he's still there. Well, they find out that there's a whole bunch of footprints around where he was, and those footprints are Kremling footprints, the bad guys from Donkey Kong Country. They're like lizard-like reptile, different types of things, and they are called Kremlings. The Kongs come across a pile of broken up stuff that was left there by Donkey Kong the previous day. On that stuff there was a note, and it's from King K. Rool. It says, "To the yellow-bellied, land-loving Kong family, har-ar, we got the big monkey on Crocodile Isle. If you want him back, you scurvy dogs, you'll have to hand over the banana horde." The note was signed by Captain K. Rool. The Kongs stared at one another, stunned in silence for a few seconds, absorbing the meaning of the note. Then Diddy spoke first. "Rool," he snarled. "Our old enemy, that big boss Kremling, has stolen Donkey's bananas before, but now he's got Donkey Kong himself. I guess we'll have to give Rool the bananas if we ever want to see that lazy ape again," said Cranky with a sigh. Diddy was shocked. "After all the trouble we went through last time to get them back," he gasped. "Well, blasted baboon bottoms," exclaimed Cranky, "what else can we do?" "We can rescue Donkey Kong, of course," said both Diddy and Dixie at the same time. And that begins Chapter 2, where they set out, Diddy and Dixie and Cranky as well. It's a little different than the game, because Cranky comes with them. And they go out on an adventure to save Donkey Kong. The Kongs set out on their adventure at Donkey Kong Island's docks. They go on a boat in order to get to Crocodile Isle, where King K. Rool, now Captain K. Rool, is held, and he's also keeping Donkey Kong there. So, once they get on the boat, they actually crash in a storm, and they go underwater into the cold green sea. Down they plunge into the cold green sea. They struggled to hold their breaths. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, from out of nowhere came two menacing faces. Lockjaw the piranha and Shuri the starfish, two of the Kong's underwater enemies, had been following the ship. They were hoping for an opportunity like this. Now, you may remember Lockjaw from the video game. He's actually named in the video game as one of the enemies, and there's actually a level named after him as well. There's also Shuri the starfish, which is another enemy, a common enemy in the video game itself. Suddenly, a streaking blue flash appeared from the briny green depths. A cry of "On guard!" stunned Lockjaw and Shuri, stopping them in their tracks. It was On guard, the swordfish, a friend of the Kongs. On guard had helped Diddy and It was On guard, the swordfish, a friend of the Kongs. On guard had helped Donkey and Diddy on their very first adventure together, which is a reference to the first Donkey Kong Country video game on Super Nintendo, as well as a reference to the second game where On guard reappears as a returning animal sidekick. The animal sidekicks in the game are buddies you can find, and they'll help you out along your journey for one level. Sort of like a Yoshi. The Kongs were able to get back on their ship and get closer to Crocodile Island, but what they noticed right away was a rocky cove filled with hot, boiling lava. The second chapter ends with a question. "What do we do?" shouted Dixie. "Stay on the burning ship or jump into the scalding lava?" You can tell that even though this book is aimed at younger readers, and it does feel like a book for younger readers, don't get me wrong, but the video game itself is pretty intense, even as an adult. Just playing it is a pretty intense experience for a video game. It's challenging. It has lots of things you gotta memorize, like patterns to get past all the enemies. Now, this book is actually a pretty intense read, too. They kind of keep the action up. It's not a whole lot of talking in this book, but there is conversations. It's mostly action scene after action scene, and that kind of follows the story of the game because the game is mostly an action platforming game. Chapter 3 is really interesting to me because you start out as the ship is burning that they're on because they're reaching the lava. And then to escape the lava, what they have to do is jump on crocodile heads. Just like in the video game, how you bounce off the heads in the second world, which is the lava world, they do that in this book as well, which is pretty cool. I like that nod to the game where it's not like it's trying to really make sense of the game, but it does include things that you would do in the game in the book. So now Diddy and Dixie are going across the lava on top of the crocodile heads, and Cranky is having a hard time with this. Now what happens to Cranky is Squawks the parrot, who's an animal buddy from the original Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 2, comes along and helps carry Cranky Kong to safety. "Where is Donkey Kong?" asked Squawks. Diddy quickly explained what had happened. He told Squawks the purpose of their quest. "They may have taken Donkey Kong to Gangplank Galleon," Squawks guessed. "That's K. Rool's old pirate ship. It washed up on shore and is no longer seaworthy. It's a logical place for Rool to be hiding Donkey Kong. Even though the ship doesn't travel the seas anymore, it is still manned by a scurvy Kremling crew." "Then that's where we'll start," said Diddy. There's other things from the video game included in this book as well, including Dixie. She picks up a barrel and throws it and it explodes on the enemies. That's directly out of the game. There's other enemies named in this book, like Clomp, the peg-leg Kremling pirate, who you may remember from one of the first stages in Donkey Kong Country 2. Now, they kind of mix up the story a little bit in this book to fit the narrative that they're trying to tell in the story. What they do is they start out with an underwater scene, which isn't really in the game at the start. And then they also have a lava stage at the very start before they get to Crocodile Island, which makes sense in terms of the story, but in the game it's actually World 2. And then they go to Gangplank Galleon, which is actually in World 1. So they're going in different order between the levels of the game, but it does make sense the way they've told it in this story. After battling a few Kremlings on board the pirate ship, the Kongs resumed their search of the ship, but soon realized there was no sign of Donkey Kong anywhere. "All that for nothing?" asked Cranky dejectedly. "Wait," shouted Dixie from across the deck, "I found something." And that's where we begin Chapter 4. Dixie finds a treasure chest, and inside that treasure chest there's an old pirate map. This map leads them to Captain K. Rool's keep. It was the heavily guarded fortress of Rool's lair. So following the instructions of the map, Dixie Kong leads Diddy and Cranky Kong to a forest, a dark forest, which you may recognize from the video game. Then they are quickly led to Creme, which is the swamp area from Donkey Kong Country 2. This was actually the third world in the game, and now they're finally there in the story on page 29. This next part's a memorable part for me because I've read this book as a child, and also I played the game quite a bit, so it's a memorable scene in the game and the book, and that is when they go underwater in the swamp area. They can't see anything, it's all murky and dark. You may remember this from the video game. They find an animal buddy by the name of Glimmer, and he's a fish and he has a light on his head, so he can light up the area depending on which way Dixie or Diddy is facing in the game. It'll light a path so they can see through the murky depths of the swamp. The Kongs are able to escape from Quay swamp, and they make it through some more of the forest. Afterwards, they find a sign that reads Crazy Kremland. Now this is also an area in the video game. It's the amusement park area. Chapter 4 ends with Cruncha and some other Kremlings about to close in on Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky Kong, and they're almost unable to escape until you reach Chapter 5. The three Kongs disguise themselves as monkeys in a prize-winning game at the amusement park, and the Kremlings pass over them. There's some humor and action in this book as they try to escape from the Kremlings in the amusement park area, which goes on for quite a while, actually. Cruncha is still chasing after the three Kongs. They reach the House of Mirrors in the amusement park, and they try to escape him in that part of the book. Now this part of the book, the House of Mirrors, was not in the video game, but it does add to some of the context of the book, so it gives them a way to escape these Kremlings that have been chasing them for the past few pages. Cruncha tries smashing the Kong's reflections in the House of Mirrors, but he keeps missing, and every time he hits it, there's more reflections on the broken pieces of the mirror glass. So Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky are able to escape. Chapter 5 ends, and Chapter 6 begins with a scene from one of the levels in the video game. They're still at the Kremling amusement park, but Cruncha and his other Kremlings have finally tried to catch up with Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky Kong. And it leads them to a scene straight out of the video game with an amusement park ride that's sort of like the minecart levels in Donkey Kong Country 1, but in the book, it's also there. The Kongs finally make their way out of Kremland, which seems to be the longest area they stay in the book. Now they make it to a wooded area, a haunted area known as Gloomy Gulch. Eventually they run into an enemy called Cloak, who you may recognize from the video game, who is a ghost character that would throw things at you, and he wears basically a cloak, that's all he is. The ghosts in the forest continue to chase the Kongs, and then the Kongs are able to light a flare barrel to see in the darkness. They finally make it to Quay's Keep, and Chapter 7 begins. The Kongs are able to trick the guards at the entrance and make their way into Quay's Keep. The first level they came to was the chain link chamber. In order to proceed any higher, they had to climb a 100-foot high chain link fence, which also mirrors one of the game's levels, because there is a level where you're in the keep and you're scrolling upward the entire time. They have enemies from the game such as Clobber and Cannon, other Kremlings. They also have the Kremling named Cutlass, which uses 2 razor-sharp swords. They also have the Kremling named Crook, which shoots out his hooked hand at the Kongs. Using the Kongs' teamwork, they're able to escape and make it through the rest of the tower. The Kongs had just one more level to get past before they reach the top, a level known as Toxic Tower. The Kongs are forced to climb up as fast as they can through the tower because poison water is seeping up through the tower. Then we reach the final chapter of the book, which is Chapter 8, a relatively short chapter, but it's the conclusion of the book. The 3 Kongs are able to make it up through a hatch door at the very top of the tower, and they encounter Donkey Kong chained up and Captain K. Rool waiting for them. Captain K. Rool stepped into the room. He was seething. No one had ever made it all the way to the top of the keep before, but despite his role as leader of the Kremlings, K. Rool was basically a coward. "I'll destroy this whole place before I let you free the big monkey," he shouted at them. Then he set off a smoke bomb and climbed a rope ladder to the roof of the keep where his croc plane was waiting. Just like in the video game, you go up to the Captain K. Rool's ship as Diddy and Dixie, and you go to battle Captain K. Rool. Rool stumbled blindly around the cockpit of his croc plane. Diddy decided to put him out of commission with a cartwheel attack. When he slammed into Rool, the Kremling hit the partially open cockpit door. Captain K. Rool fell out of the plane and plunged into the ocean below. He landed with a huge splash. Diddy and Dixie looked down. They saw a group of gray shark fins circling Rool. Then the evil Kremling leader disappeared. That's pretty brutal. They knock him out of a plane and sharks eat him. "Nice bit of rescuing, Diddy." "Nice bit of rescuing, Diddy," said Donkey Kong. He and Cranky climbed on board. "Thanks, DK," said Diddy, beaming with pride. He piloted the croc plane off the roof and set a course for Donkey Kong Island. On the way, Diddy and Dixie filled Donkey Kong in about all the details of their adventure. "I had faith in those 2 youngsters all along," said Cranky. "Of course, they never would have made it past the first Kremlings if I hadn't been with them." "You never change, do you, Pops?" asked Donkey Kong. "Why should I?" shot back Cranky. "Why mess with primate perfection?" The others all laughed and settled in for the flight home. The end. What a great story! Donkey Kong Country Rescue on Crocodile Isle by Michael Teitelbaum. It does fit in with the storyline of the video game, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of a backstory to what happens in the events of the game. Is it necessary? No. Is it necessary to play the game reading this book first? No, not at all. But this is mainly for people who played the game and then want a little bit more story, or kids that want something to read, or even something to practice reading on when you're a young kid in those early ages of reading. Rescue on Crocodile Isle isn't really that bad of a book. It's a little weird because it's about Donkey Kong Country characters, and it's based on the game, but that's also kind of a cool thing. So Donkey Kong Country Rescue on Crocodile Isle, I think this is a pretty fun book. It's by no means a classic, it's by no means the best book ever, but it's a fun read, it's not bad, it's not too cringy, and it's also appropriate for its age level. Well, I guess that's about it for the story of Donkey Kong Country Rescue on Crocodile Isle. Alright everybody, that's it for today's Happy Beard Games, your source for classic gaming goodness. Today we did Nostalgia Bits, where we checked out a Donkey Kong Country storybook. Thank you for your continued support, viewers. If you want to support me further, be sure to leave a like on this video, leave a comment, let me know what you think. Your opinion does matter, and I will reply. Also, subscribe if you have not, and then share it on your favorite various social media networks. Alright, thanks for watching once again. Bye!